I've probably mentioned her in every video I made today. If I didn't, let me know and I'll apologize for getting the information correct and miscommunicating it. Anyway, I called the dispatch up, and of course it's the non-emergency line. I didn't want to tie up 911. In Dual County, Nebraska, they're one and the same. 911 is the same as the non-emergency. It's the same person regardless of which line you call from. So even if you're calling the non-emergency line, you still get the same people. Now, the reason that they were trying to put charges on me is because I was calling 911 instead of the Dual County Sheriff's Department number in Chapel, Nebraska. It literally goes to the same people. By their own admission, it goes to the same exact place, same exact people. It's a general number. Kind of like when the Nebraska State Patrol tells me to call their general number. That's right. Investigator Woods told me to call the general number. I called it over, I want to say 2.5 months ago. He still hasn't returned. If he's not going to return the call, what's the point of calling him? What's the point in telling me to call him if he's not going to return the call? What's the point in sending him evidence if he's not going to look at it? What's the point in doing what they're telling me to do when they're not doing anything with it? They're not making any efforts. They're not looking at it or acknowledging any of it. It's complicated. All of these situations are because people didn't want to admit that they screwed up. Even in a small way, it makes a big difference. Natalie Bollinger getting busted with heroin on my birthday in 2016. Is that my fault? No. Did she have it with her? No, her mom found it in her room. Was I out stalking Natalie Bollinger on my birthday from the bushes? Did I follow them to Elliot's Coffee Grounds and watch them and peep at them with binoculars? No. No. Alicia Bollinger drove my piece of shit car from Natalie and Alicia's mother's house, which is where we met up on my birthday. And Alicia Bollinger drove us to Elliot's Coffee Grounds. That's where Natalie was apologetic that she didn't call me when she got into the accident, and it's where she told me that her and her sister were fighting over a boy. That was the last time I ever saw Natalie Bollinger. And Natalie, she was embarrassed. A lot of people get embarrassed, or they're afraid of the consequences. I'm not seeking consequences if you're telling the truth. I know you screwed up. You know you screwed up. You screwed up pretty friggin' big. All of you. But you won't admit it. I admit to where I screwed up. I admit to the stuff that I took wrong, and the stuff that I got wrong, and the stuff that I even misinterpreted. But it seems to me I'm the only one who does that. It seems to me nobody this day and age is willing to admit that they screwed up. Do I want to sue the living shit out of Hood River Sheriff's Department and Police Department? Yes, I do. I want to sue them for every penny that they're worth, but if they admit they screwed up, well then hell no I don't. There's no reason to. Before we can make any progress, people got to admit that they made a mistake. They also got to admit that those mistakes have consequences. With most of these people, the reason that they're hiding under rocks is because they don't want to look at the consequences. They realized all too late what the consequences were, and the fact that it's the consequences I told them about. The very consequences I was afraid of because I've seen it time and again. Many of these people have seen it time and again. That lady last night admitted she mistake. You know how rare that is. That's like the Tooth Fairy bringing you $10,000 under your pillow. That's like your daddy giving you $1 million loan when you turn 18. She deserves a fucking award. She really does. And sarcastic, that is absolutely the truth. You can't help when you screw up and pretend it didn't happen. Now that's when you start running into felonies, especially when it's a reported 911 call. See, they have access to their body cameras, but I need an act of God to get access to them. They can have people pretend that they saw or pretend that they heard me say things that aren't on their body cameras after they've destroyed them. Nearly all of the victims of my predators were able to get body cameras. Well, from the ones that were law enforcement. Let me give you a list of the law enforcement officers I tried to turn in who are either sitting in jail, sitting in prison, or awaiting their day in court. Whale and Lolatai got away with everything. Out of everything that I've seen, yeah, I got done the dirtiest. However, Michelle Quinn, this is one of the other jurisdictions that Scott DaCosta used to assist in preventing me from turning him in. Michelle Quinn, while I was in prison, and she helped put me there, Michelle Quinn was arrested for beating her girlfriend. And although Nebraska State Patrol has recorded repeatedly on my YouTube channel saying that it's not their job to police the police, the fact is it actually is, and they outright lied. They just didn't want to do their job. There's no incentive for them to do their job. There's no pressure for them to do their job. Now let's take a look at Demetria Shankling. Both of the officers involved in that situation were officers that I tried to turn in. Now at first I was like, I don't recognize them, but then it showed some other pictures of the officers, and I was like, yeah, that's them. And then to top it off, it mentioned the things that they were saying to Demetria Shankling and the jokes, and I was like, yup. Of course, that could be any Boulder officer. That's what they're trained to do. They're hobo hunters, not investigators. That lady last night, they're not allowed to give me her name, and I didn't ask for her name, but I made sure that I called them up and said thank you. I don't think that that woman needs to be sued. I don't think that she's a horrible person. I think she made a mistake. And I commend her greatly for admitting it. And when I called them up today, the lady that I spoke with said that she was there last night and she was working with that lady. I wonder if that's the lady this morning that I spoke with. Probably not. It's late enough in the day, it's probably a different shift. Because that lady this morning didn't seem to know nothing. So that lady this morning I'm not happy with. But you know what? When somebody does something good, like that lady last night, admits that they screwed up, you have no idea how precious that is. When Mariah Johnson, after pulling her BS when Natalie Bollinger disappeared, we had just become friends on Facebook. We had a friend in common who froze to death Christmas Day in Boulder, Colorado by the name of Benjamin Harvey. He froze to death by exposure, the same exact thing that killed Selena Not Afraid. Exposure to the elements, because it was illegal for him to use a blanket. Over the Natalie Bollinger situation, she railed against me, and she actually started a campaign in Boulder. Then when it turned out that I didn't kill Natalie, you know what Mariah Johnson did? She apologized. She admitted that she was wrong, that she had made a mistake. That is commendable. Mandy Singer, she admitted that she didn't come forward and didn't help me because she didn't understand, because she was wrapped up in her own drug habits. You know how hard it is to admit those things, especially knowing that anybody in the world can have access to that, knowing that it's going to be on YouTube, you admitting to those things. Do you know how strong of a woman she had to be to do that? Mandy Singer, no matter how pissed off she is at me right now, even if she stays pissed off at me for the rest of my life, you know what? At least, she told the truth. She also wasn't too happy with Rose for using her son's disappearance as, God, the sickness that it became. There's a few others that admitted they were wrong and that they screwed up. Not very many, though. Dylan Bauer, I can commend him. He didn't admit that he was wrong about any of the situations that we were in, but he wasn't wrong. He didn't do anything wrong in any of these situations. Matter of fact, he offered to help. Dylan Bauer was one of my bullies in high school. He apologized for it afterwards. I got more respect for him than I have for any best friend I ever had. You know how much it takes to be able to admit that you're wrong in a world like this, where you are condemned for every mistake you will ever make, where you are condemned before you've made a mistake. So the lady that I spoke with today said that she would make sure that the supervisor heard about it, and that young woman last night got recognition. That's right. Can you imagine getting recognition for making a mistake? Well, she's not getting the recognition for making the mistake. She's getting the recognition for taking the very first step in establishing trust with an at-risk individual. She's taking the first step in making sure that the right thing is done instead of trying to hide. I'm seeking justice. I'm not seeking cruelty. To err is human. Whether or not you did something immoral or illegal comes down to whether you admit it, and also whether or not it was something that you did intentionally and maliciously. Most of these people who screwed up, they hate me because they're like, stop blaming me. They didn't make mistakes intentionally or maliciously. These aren't naturally hateful people. But in typing, that's how they want to take it. They want to take it as I'm blaming them, as it's all their fault. No, it took a lot of people not communicating properly. This all could have been hashed out on my birthday in Virginia. Natalie Bollinger and I just wanted to have a one-on-one conversation, and her sister wasn't having it. If her sister was doing it because she was afraid for Natalie, well, then why did Alicia Bollinger spend so much time making sure that she spent one-on-one time with me? With Natalie thinking that she was in love with me and me having to talk her out of that repeatedly, when Natalie was telling me that they were fighting over a boy, it didn't click to me at that point in time, but later on I was like, am I the boy they were fighting over? That's stupid. I thought I talked Natalie out of that shit. Natalie Bollinger told what she thought was a little white lie, not thinking of the consequences for me. That lady last night admitted the truth, which means that, well, we can work together. I would rather work together with somebody who did screw up than somebody who is absolutely perfect, because I know that perfect people screw up too. If you're perfect, you're a goody two-shoes who doesn't admit when you fuck up, and you do blame it on others. And no, I can't work with somebody like that. That's not somebody that's capable of working with others. That's a goddamn narcissist. That's an actual textbook narcissist. Most people exhibit narcissistic tendencies. Over 80% of women on Facebook have shown, of course, studies have shown that people take pictures of what they care about the most. And there's a few other criteria, but really what it comes down to is that over 80% of women on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter exhibit extreme narcissistic traits and worse. And I'd like to be able to show you the statistic thing. Maybe I can pull it up on my computer and show you tomorrow. But there's a lot to it. You know, in order to be considered a narcissist, though, you can exhibit narcissistic traits and not be a narcissist. Also, somebody who is a narcissist may call you a narcissist in order to get away, and that's part of the gaslighting. Girl gets busted lying. She was out cheating on you, so you kick her out of the house. It's your house. You're paying the bills. It's in your name. She's the one who's cheating. You have the right to kick her out. But then again, she's got apparently the First Amendment right to slander your name maliciously. No, she doesn't. That's the key word there, maliciously. At that point, she runs around and tells all of your friends that you're some sort of a horrible monster who victimizes women, and you're a narcissist, and you only kicked her out because she stood her ground, and so on and so forth. And in some situations, that's the case. And in some situations, she's calling that man a narcissist because she wants to get back. She wants to get even. She wants to get revenge. I'm not doing anything vengeful. I'm trying to show the truth. I am after justice. And justice doesn't work when people are dishonest, when people try to hide their mistakes. And I can't trust somebody who doesn't screw up. I sure as hell can't trust somebody who doesn't admit that they screw up. Now, because this young woman admitted that she screwed up, there's a possibility that her coworkers, if it turns into a severe civil rights situation, they'll try to blame it on her because she broke the silence first. They'll try to claim that it's all her fault and so on and so forth. And I really don't think that's the situation that's going to happen here. I want to believe that that young woman being honest is the first step towards actual effective change. Towards changing the way that these guys are trained. Towards changing the way that their body camera evidence is handled. Changing the way that the poor and impoverished are treated. Changing the laws so that they no longer protect the predators instead of the victims. Robert Franklin Warnick should be in prison for multiple consecutive felonies that he committed against me. According to the laws in the state of Nebraska, he would not get out in his lifetime. His kids would grow up without a father. Wouldn't it have just been easier for him to admit that he screwed up and apologize instead of playing victim? Because he is going to go to prison now. Also, thanks to him, Scott Costa is going to prison now. Something can be done from here. This is a situation because of the multi-jurisdictional crap. Because of the rampant threats, harassment, and intimidation, not just on the internet, but also in real life. Not just multiple jurisdictions, multiple states. From one end of the country to the other. They're going to want to focus just on the videos where I'm having a meltdown or a panic attack. They're going to want to focus just on the parts where I'm screaming. They're going to want to try to go through and find the parts where my words don't fit together properly or perfectly. That's where somebody who is aware of my situation, aware of my disabilities, is able to actually speak up. An actual medical professional, an actual professional who works with autistic people and understands autism. Well, they can actually speak in court. The situation for me, not having public pretenders who are willing to do their jobs, we got to do something to change this. You have any idea how pissed off a lot of these cops that I've had to interact with are? How sick they are of having to deal with me? Well, you know, if those cops were directing that in the proper direction, they'd be directing it at the courts. And they'd be directing it specifically at the public pretenders. They have to keep and maintain a working relationship with a judge. They can't rock the boat. That means not fighting for your rights. The incentive for police officers to target the poor in specific is great. Especially a homeless person, because most of the homeless people, the only reason they're homeless is because they're by themselves. They're alone. It's only them working to get themselves unhomeless. Whereas when you're out in this situation, as often as you see and interact with cops, you know, it's obvious they're not to be trusted. Even if you want to. It's their training. Just across the border, we can see Washington State from here. Just across the border, they teach something different than what they teach here. Here, they try to teach understanding. Just the other side of the border there, they teach what's called fear-based training. They teach the officers to be paranoid of everyone, to pull the trigger first, and to make excuses after. They've shot several police officers. Several of their own officers have been shot in Washington State by other officers because of those policies, because of that fear-based training. Well, you know what? That fear-based training is getting people murdered. It's getting innocent people killed over paranoia, and it's literally used to murder people. I was afraid. You were afraid of an unarmed man? Boulder Police Department was so afraid of me in the Boulder County Hospital. Holy crap. What were they afraid of? They were afraid I would bite them. I have literally 0 teeth. They said I tried to bite them. They also claimed I had a weapon. Do you guys see a weapon in any of those videos? No. What weapon did I supposedly try to assault them with? They slandered me on court documents. Absolutely. They slandered me in police reports. Absolutely. Can it be proven? Absolutely. But people need to see it. Instead of allowing Scott DaCosta and his goons to do everything in their power to prevent that evidence from being shown, up to and including destroying evidence of their own wrongdoing, up to and including lying in order to obtain that evidence and prevent me from turning it into the Nebraska State Patrol. Of course, the Nebraska State Patrol didn't keep their word in that situation either, and, well, Sean Holloway made sure to rub that in my face while he was transporting me from Garden County Jail to Scottsbluff. Then they transferred me, and Scottsbluff, they shouldn't have taken me to either, because I was trying to turn them in for more abuse over the situation with Scott DaCosta. That's right. Where did they repeatedly take me? Anywhere out of jurisdiction. Now, with those officers the other day, they don't want to understand, they don't want to hear about the things in other states. They don't want to hear about the abuse that a person goes through when officers want to lie and say that an individual is schizophrenic and on drugs. This has been their excuse, their validation for all of the crimes that they have committed against me, and yet there are dozens of witnesses on my YouTube and on my Facebook who have stated loud and clear that I don't do drugs. Drug dealers who admitted to doing drugs stated very loud and clear that I don't do drugs. And many people stated very loud and clear that I have not exhibited any schizophrenic traits as long as they've known me. I'm overwhelmed. There's a big difference between being overwhelmed and being schizophrenic. Now, that lady last night could have pretended like they had never said nothing, that I was schizophrenic, and that I had obviously must have imagined the situation. Now, what would I do in that situation? Well, the first thing I would do is get on YouTube and rail about how horrible a person she was, how horrible what she did was, and then I would, well, search through my computer for the recordings that I have with her and show on YouTube that she is a lying POS. You know why I'm not doing that? Because she's not. Because she's not. Because rather than hide what she did wrong, she admitted to it. She admitted to it. She admitted to it. Teresa Orn, you should learn from this. She admitted to it. Lanny Engeline, Amanda Engeline, you should take a lesson from this. Alicia Bollinger, Danica Garner, Rose M. Kelly, you should take a lesson from this. Kara Johnson Miles, you should take a lesson from this. Waylon Lolatai, Officer Herr, and Officer Vanderleest, you should take a lesson from this. Michelle Quinn, you should take a lesson from this. James Hammond, you should take a lesson from this. Cody Selhorst, you should take a lesson from this. Scott DaCosta, you should take a lesson from this. Dallas Richmond, you should take a lesson from this. Zach Richmond, you should take a lesson from this. Kayla Trujillo, you should take a lesson from this. James Golden, you should take a lesson from this. Don Bird, you should take a lesson from this. Ken Wilson, you should take a lesson from this. Leatha Plunkett, you should take a lesson from this. It would have been a lot easier if people weren't hiding what they were doing. It would have been nice if myself, the police, and Natalie Bollinger's ex-stepmothers could all work together. Now, instead of posting up the recording today of that lady, the one that I made where they told me that someone was supposed to come see me yesterday morning. Of course, they didn't keep their word today either, but that's not the dispatch operator's fault. Well, it might be her fault again, I don't know, but she'd probably admit to it if she screwed up again. I'm willing to work with her. If these officers can admit that they screwed up and actually take a look at the consequences for people when you go running around saying stuff like they're schizophrenic or they're on drugs, especially when they're not. I do, however, poke smut. I don't drink. I don't do meth. You know, there was one person who used to be friends with me who was... Well, I can give you a list of everyone that I've ever done meth with. It was all in a 30-day period. It was all prior to 2003. Case Leighton Morris is one of them. He can verify that that was over 20 years ago. I never got into the life. I tried that stuff for about 30 days. I didn't even do it every day. I just wanted to hang out with my friends. Problem is, drugs don't work right in my system. How can I get addicted to something that puts me to sleep? Is 30 days of using that stuff the reason that my teeth are gone? No, it's not. The reason my teeth are gone was because I didn't have the money to have them yanked. I had the money multiple times to have them yanked, but it had too much time had lapsed since I had gotten my x-rays, so they wanted me to pay for more x-rays and start all over again. About $5,000 worth of x-rays all said and done. And in that entire time, they only pulled 3 teeth, and that was in Montana. Later, I got all of my teeth pulled out. The infection in my mouth would have killed me. 5 years of severe tooth pain, you know. I understand that a smile is what people want to believe. They want to believe a smile, especially a pretty straight smile like I had. I don't have it anymore. It didn't matter about the looks. What mattered was the pain. I didn't care about getting a girlfriend and looking all pretty and shiny and getting up in my nice duds and my shiny penny loafers and try to be impressive. I just wanted the pain to end. Just like this situation. I just want the pain to end. These people all screwed up. They didn't do it maliciously. But the fact that they tried to hide that they screwed up afterwards, and innocent people were killed because of it. It doesn't just weigh heavily on their consciences. It increases the fear factor for them. They don't want consequences. I don't want consequences for them either. That's why I gave them ample time and ample opportunity to keep their word. That's also why I have all of the evidence that I have, them gaslighting me and bullshitting me and lying to me and making excuse after excuse. I'm going to end this video. My car is, oh wow, yeah. Look how bright that light is now. Earlier it was barely on enough for you to be able to see it. Now that brake light is super bright. So apparently sit here idling. I actually did one circuit around it, and I revved it up a couple of times up to about $3-4 grand. That way I could make sure that it's doing something. And sure enough, it's doing something. I was down to about 1/4 of a tank of gas, and because of the angle I'm sitting at, it says just above 1/4 of a tank. So at least it's something. It's not enough to go rescue Rebecca. I've got enough gas money to get there, but I don't have insurance. The lady at Starbucks who's going to help me to set up that card so I can do a fundraiser, she's not able to do that until next Saturday, so she's going to help me on her lunch break. And between now and then, I'd like to take a shower. Doing so in the Columbia or in the Hood River are both bad ideas. It's colder than a cast iron commode on the shady side of an iceberg. Anyway, those officers, they talk nice. If they can admit that they screwed up and understand that I will not be pushing any consequences for them if they admit that they screwed up, that obviously retraining is a better thing to do than get rid of them outright. You know, I'd rather do it that way.